Check, Mike. I'm here. I'm live on all the different channels: YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Twitch. If you're on Twitch, we're live even over there on Twitch. Check it out. Or X, YouTube, Twitch, and LinkedIn. So trying to bring you a broad view of what's going on in the macro space and the landscape. Happy Tuesday, everybody. It's Tuesday, already kicking off the week to a rocking start. Lots of interesting announcements this week. We got inflation rate coming up, and we'll go into a bit of our inflation report that we do. Oliver is unfortunately not with us right now. He's out and about traveling, so we don't have his expert insight, but we have downloaded a lot of what he's worked on across presentations and Word docs. We will cover off some of the activity that's happening this week in terms of AI conference that's taking place in France, and amount of investment that Europe is trying to at least announce. A lot of lip service. Let's see if they can actually follow through on that. So that'll be interesting. And then we've also got some insights in terms of Dixie, economy, gold, etc., and why we believe 3 is the new 2. Anyway, hi everybody, Stefan here. I'm going to try and keep this short to about 20 minutes. You've all asked for a bit shorter, more dense, faster, so we're going to go through with that. I'm Stefan, founder of Laguna Labs, and CEO at Laguna Labs, founder of Truflation and the Truth Network, and also upcoming interesting protocols building on the Truth Network, where we have teams working on Nuon and Index.Fund. Stay tuned on Thursday. We will be talking about Index.Fund with Sam, who is leading that product over there. Really interesting what they're doing. We've already talked about it. Most of you have listened in on that. But today we want to cover off the hot topic, which is really inflation. So I'm going to dig right in. Get ready, buckle up. There's going to be a lot of content here and a lot of insights as well. So as you know, as a premium subscriber, you get these reports ahead of time. Generally, every Monday of the week of an announcement around inflation or interest rates, we give our opinion. You get this in the form of a PowerPoint presentation, but also for those more studious and looking to read a bit more, you can actually get a detailed report, which is some 8 pages long. So it's quite long, but it has all the granular detail in there and lots of interesting insights. So that's for you as a premium subscriber, as well as obviously getting all the data, being able to download the data, either have it as an API into your spreadsheets, into your databases, into your agentic solutions that you have out there. Why is data so important for AI? Because you need data, and we have the data on the Truth Network, and Truflation has mastered how to calculate and work with that data. So here you go. This is it. January is always a super difficult month. Why is January so difficult, right? Because January is when the BLS changes the methodology. We saw that on the labor stats that came out on the 7th, where they were reporting different numbers. They edited the numbers. They've gone back and revised them, and they changed the methodology as well when they reported that on the Friday, the February 7th. So here you can see, if you read the report and go over it in granular detail, a lot of them details are edited, the change in methodology that was deployed, all of that, revisions to the establishment of survey data. So they revised their survey data and how they survey for this data. Here are some of the adjustments they make. They only announce these after the reports, right? And so if you look at this breakdown, I mean, basically, highly sus. And what we're seeing is people just don't believe these numbers anymore. So that's why we need a new source of truth. And we're seeing a huge increase in demand for truth. Truflation. Why? Because that's where you go for the source of truth. It's transparent. It's been battle tested. We've been around for 3.5 years, and ultimately you're getting it here first, real time with real data, calibrated using real data, 100 million data points to meet that requirements and help you forecast what this CPI and the BLS will be announcing. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which is the government department which announces inflation. They're going to announce later this week. And so our forecast is to hit 2.7. Remember, right now it's 2.9, so there's a huge drop. And if you go to truflation.com, you'll already see this decline, right? We've already forecasted and seen this decline back here, where we were already on the drop after the holiday season, after spending season. We've had Thanksgiving, we've had Christmas, we've had New Year's, and we've had holidays. And now everybody's back. Everybody's realizing we got to save the money, that we got to pay. Some countries, you got to pay tax bills. In some countries, you got to pass on remittances around the world. So you're saving money and you're not really going on lavish spending in the first months of the year. And so that then pick up in the year. But ultimately, we're seeing that huge drop, and largely in lodging and accommodation. So other lodging, so travel, transportation's been coming down, less people traveling and less people staying at hotels. So the hotels drop their rates significantly, which has a big impact. As you know, the housing sector, which includes other lodging, look at that drop. I mean, significant drop over here. So if I get rid of all of the housing, other lodging, look at that, boom, right? So actually deflation in the other lodging category. So it's cheaper this year than it was last year. And remember, other lodging isn't quite 23.2%, and we'll be getting you more granular detail in terms of how much people are spending across the different categories. But for now, the housing category as a whole takes 23.2%. And by the way, if you're a premium subscriber, you see the additional breakdown here in terms of what the weightings are. So maybe you want to quickly just invest a little money to get the premium subscription. So 15 bucks 99 a month to get additional insights. But either way, if it's important for you or not, one thing you can do is just go and calculate your own inflation. How much are you witnessing? What is the inflation for you based on your income? Come to truflation.com/calculator and you'll be able to play around and test out what your inflation is. Super easy. You select the persona. I'm the US average spend. What is the average spend? What's an urban professional earning? Around 45,000 on average. So if that's the case, what's inflation? Your personal inflation on a monthly basis is, you're witnessing, what's it, $977 is estimated increase in your monthly spend. So that's basically what your increase is over the last, for your household, is 26.7% based on that income. So that's what your annual is. And so on a monthly basis, over the course of the year, you need to increase your spending habits of 977 to have the same basket size in order when you go to the grocery stores. Anyway, that's just some things that we can do. Coming back to the most important topic du jour right now, it's what is inflation? We're forecasting 2.7, which is in a range between 2.6 and 2.8. Why do we in January not give you accurate forecasting? Because the government changes the methodology, and they announce the methodology after reporting the CPI number in this month, right? So that's what comes later. Yeah, so that's really the insight there. Yeah, TVS. Yeah, no, look, man, if you're going to ask questions around the topic, happy to answer those. But right now, I'm not going to talk about what you're asking for. But yeah, of course it is. Trust me, we feel that every single day. Anyway, so yeah, it's again the holiday blues, right? Post-holiday scenario, as I mentioned really early on. And we saw that trend coming in real time in the Truflation index that I just shared earlier. But if you look here as well, one of the things that we're seeing in the index, not in the aggregated view, in the year-on-year view, is you're seeing here a significant drop, but you're also seeing here the government rate. The government has reported 2.9%. That was the last reporting in December. And so in January, we're seeing a drop. So the government will witness a drop as well. And so it's, but still long term, we think that inflation is going to stay on the higher end. We're not going to see the 2%. That's our belief. Till productivity gains and infrastructure opportunities take place, there's going to be a large displacement and requirement for capital deployment in order to build out the infrastructure to support productivity gains. That's really what we're trying to really drive and move forward. And that's going to help accelerate the economy. And number one. Number two, it's also going to bring new capital into the market, which is going to bring new cash into the market, which is then ultimately also going to drive up inflation, right? People are printing more, but we're not overspending, which is good. Until we fix the budget deficit and we stop overspending, once the Doge's impact has taken place, and what we're seeing is actually really positive signs. Doge is having an impact, whether you like it or not, whether certain people like it or not, it's having a positive impact. People like to see this change. And the problem that we're having right now is the dollar is becoming the safe haven. People want to invest in the US right now. So people are buying dollar, which is driving up the dollar price against other currencies. And you can see that in the Dixie. We talked about it a bit last time, but the Dixie right now is still up at 108, right? So look at that increase, right? So since September last year, people started believing that Trump was going to come back. And then all of a sudden, it's been up and up and up. And ultimately, how do we bring it back down to get to this point? Why? Because US goods are getting more expensive, right? So with this, because you're buying in dollar terms. And so you're buying in dollar terms, all the commodities you need to buy, you're buying denominated in dollars. So it becomes more expensive. All of these things really matter. And so how do we bring down the dollar? And I think that's going to be one of the top tasks in order to stimulate the US economy as well. And that's where either we bring down interest rates, so Trump's going to fight really hard to print down interest rates, or find other ways to just radically replace and build out another Plaza Accord sort of type scenario again. But either way, so read up about the Plaza Accord. That's what happened, where the G5 nations, so the top 5 economies, in those days was Japan, France, UK, I think Germany, and the US, where they got together back in the 80s someday, and they then rebalanced and dropped the value of the dollar by 50%. And that had huge repercussions in the industry, but it allowed and stimulated the US economy in terms of export capability and driving a lot more export into the markets. But that's something that might happen. And let's see, how does that work with the tariff wars, right? What does that mean? Imported products become more expensive. So if the dollar gets cheaper, imports get, but also bear in mind, a high dollar allows for cheap importation. So the local domestic currency, I can make up that in tariffs. So if I keep that high, I can purchase and import products, and I can actually layer a tariff on there to make up for the currency difference associated with the high dollar and the lower currency of the imported product. Anyway, things to bear in mind. So all of these complexities come into an equation and need to be thought through and planned out and mapped out. And that's what Oliver and Ivan and the team at Truflation, are working on. Yeah, so services, there's a tight labor market, and wage has grown, salaries have grown, which are also sort of implying an increased inflation, and food has gone up in prices. Food, here we can see food are up, is up 0.3%, or sorry, year on year, 3.5%. So up significantly. And we can see that. You all know, and you're all talking about eggs, right? So our partner, Trading Economics, they do this really cool graph on eggs. And so you can see the price of eggs over here. It's up at $7.40 for a dozen eggs. I mean, that's pretty crazy. That's whack. As Joey would say in the Friends, if anybody still remembers that TV show. But yeah, that's pretty whack. Yeah, so hopefully it's largely due to bird flu, but I also think maybe it's partially due to a change in diet, right? People are realizing with Maha, Make America Healthy Again, that ultimately we need to change our food patterns. We need more protein. So where do we get the protein from? We get them from eggs, and so that's one thing that we're seeing, maybe why, in addition to the bird flu, there's very little supply in the market right now. So you're going to grocery stores and you don't even see eggs anymore, right? Which is really challenging. But here you can see gas costs are still high. We've seen gas at the pump go up a little bit up again, sort of buying clothing for Christmas and presents. It's actually and getting ready for the spring season. So new fashion items are going to be coming out, especially across fast fashion and across some of the other the overall fashion industry. We don't need sweaters anymore. We now need t-shirts, right? So that's the migration that's going to take place. Durables and tobacco as well. But I think more importantly, what is happening, and we've gotten off to the days of thunder. We've been talking about that since the beginning. There's a quite a start coming in. We've now got tariffs. The threat of tariffs. How's the market dealing with that? What's the the sort of sentiment around that? We've seen a lot of change there. We rates, we want to bring down the rates. Why? Because that brings down the Dixie and it allows for greater exportation of US products into the markets to drive a successful trade balance. GDP slowed faster than expected, so coming in at 2.3%. Consumer spending is up month on month. Unemployment rates are down. It's at 4%, and earnings are up, right? So this is down from what was expected, from 4.1% down to 4.0%. But I think, as I mentioned, around the labor numbers on Friday, people just didn't believe those numbers. I think there's a lot of misconception around those numbers. The methodology changed again. So always dubious when things like that happen. And then saving rate holding steady, people are saving. But I think if you look at this graph, which is really interesting, you're seeing here that the University of Michigan, in their survey, consumers do believe that inflation is coming back. There is a big belief in the consumer market that inflation's coming back. Okay, the Fed, New York Fed, says it's flat, it's not going to change, but the consumers believe it's coming back, and we really drive that belief. And you can see in Oliver's presentation right here, inflation will persist in 2025. The target of 2% will not be reached. Immigration, we're seeing a lot of deportation, tariffs coming in, and the labor market, right? So people will get more salaries, and due to the type of people that are going to stay in the US, stay working, stay engaged, they're going to be rewarded more as more and more factory and manufacturing moves onshore, and more investment takes place and gets converted into reality, and new infrastructure gets deported. More people will start earning jobs versus getting stuck behind red tape and behind this basket of actions out there. So that's it. And we've been saying for a long time, 3 is the new 2, right? You've seen this graph already. We've shared this around. So Jerome Powell here, his 2% arbitrary vision of 2% is actually going to be bumped up to 3%. And I think if you've listened to some of our previous podcasts, right, what we're realizing is there is a big amount of funds outstanding that are really utilized for endowments, for universities, for pension funds, for insurances that actually have 20-year commitments. They provide loans outstanding. They take down on loans to meet their day-to-day cash requirements. And they take loans on 10 to 20-year time horizons. And so those loans have an inflation rate tied to it. But because of the duration associated with those, they want inflation protection. And so in order to get inflation protection, they then tie it to inflation. And my understanding right now and belief is very strong that that's why they want to keep it at 2%. Because once the 2% threshold is broken, that all of those inflation protected loans need to just get adjusted to meet the inflation protection that is associated with those loans. And that's why that 2% number is not just an arbitrary number picked from the sky. It's actually a thought through number in sort of all the outstanding loans out there. Maybe a bit picked out of the sky, but that's the sort of thought process behind that. So that's the learnings that we found and identified as to where, and just poking away at where these 2% is coming from has resulted in us actually finding out where these numbers are coming from and how we can actually really drive and get more granular insights into the thinking behind these Federal Reserve bankers. Doge is doing an amazing job, right? Will Elon Musk put Ron Paul into the Federal Reserve to do an audit over there? What will that bring? What will we find out when we do that? That'll be really interesting. Or will we just get rid of the Federal Reserve? Do we need the Federal Reserve? The market is already setting the interest rates. We can see that live. Do we need a Federal Reserve? We saw what they do in Europe with the Federal Reserve when they actually, the ECB just goes and buys $2.5 trillion, props up governments that they like, that are abiding to their censorship rules and saying and singing the right kind of tune. And then at the same time, they buy bonds from companies. We shared those numbers in our Twitter. So you can see how the Federal Reserve prints money, helps the economies, and gets going. And maybe the good thing around that is that actually that's trickling down into these AI investments. That's how Macron announced this huge AI investment, right? So we can see here how he's trying to drive AI investment. We had just right now, there is in the, here we go, you have in France, in Paris, there is the future of AI conversation, right? Sommet pour l'action sur l'IA. So IA is intelligence artificielle. Beautiful accent. But yeah, no, this is about artificial intelligence. There's a huge conference there. All the politicians are getting together here. Everybody's making hundreds of billions of announcements, right? From the European president through to Macron, the French president, all of them making big announcements around supporting AI. And of course, Mistral is one of the LLMs in Europe that is there. And by the way, Sam Altman's there. All the sort of AI gurus, I'm assuming, are all there, trying to find new ways and new opportunity to deploy their LLMs or their build out and demonstrate their applications at this conference. And there's also a more industrial conferences that taking place in parallel, right? So yeah, ASML, which is the big, large manufacturer of semiconductor manufacturing machines that TSMC needs, is in Holland. The CEO is there, seen with a picture with van der Leyen, who is the lady running the European, Europe. Not ECB, but anyway, yeah, so a lot of that funding, let's hope that comes through. One of the things that I find really interesting, though, is France. France has had leadership in nuclear energy. They have some 70% of their energy coming from nuclear. They were very advanced in that. They have some really amazing companies that are building and have experience in that. World leadership experience. Let's hope they can retain that and leverage that as a means to export that knowledge. And especially as we see small modular nuclear reactors emerge, right? These are reactors that we can have right next to data centers. the European government has announced data center investment, right? So how, and hopefully that red tape is not there, that money can actually be converted into development of big data centers. Who wants a data center next to them? Who wants a whole, modular nuclear reactor right next to the data center, which is going to be next to them? If you have fast AI and really fast throughput, I can imagine a lot of banks want to be right there so they can process trades faster or something like that. But yeah, I like how Macron actually, amazing how he has a quick turnaround in terms of marketability and driving the narrative. But plug baby plug, not drill baby drill. It's actually plug baby plug, which is a nice play on words. Yeah, but that's sort of where we're seeing, and just coming back to a couple of things that we talked about in the last conversation. So I don't really want to, sort of one of the conversations we had, and we did a quick update on when the David Sachs came out and talked about the Bitcoin initiative and put together a working group. And what I misunderstood, but actually what I realize now, and over the weekend after listening to the podcast at All In, is what they're doing is taking the executive order and trying to put that into a bill so it then can get past the regulatory hurdles in order to get approved and can't be taken away and changed thereafter. So that I didn't realize, and that's what they announced, right? We're moving so quickly from executive order to actually putting a bill together, which will then get voted and sealed and stamped and locked in to law, into the the way of operations. So it's much harder to change, whereby you can change an executive order a lot quicker. So those were things I thought were really interesting. That was one insight that I thought was interesting and taken away, a takeaway over the weekend after having heard that podcast. Yeah, the other thing is just to confirm what we're seeing. I think the other thing a lot of people are talking about is gold, right? Gold is nearly hitting all-time highs. Look at that. I mean, you can see it's up at $2,900. This is pretty much an all-time high from 2018. You can see it's really up there. Why? That's either people are worried and concerned about inflation. They're looking for asset classes where they can hedge themselves. And so that's one thing. And you can see Bitcoin is going to be very similar. I'm not sure if we have Bitcoin. Yeah, look, we have Bitcoin in here. So we can contrast that into Bitcoin. I can compare that. But Bitcoin has obviously outperformed since 2018 significantly. I can switch this between a US dollar comparison and a index comparison. But I lost my comparison. I want to compare Bitcoin. No, I want to compare it with the hedge, with gold. Why isn't it comparing it? Okay, select. Compare. Okay, here you go. Okay, you can see the comparison there. So, but if we look at just the last year, let's say we go 2018. Oh, boom, 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 boom. Are you seeing? Yeah, you're seeing here. Let's just go the last year. 20 apply, and so here you can see, and let's compare it to Bitcoin. Why isn't it comparing? Yeah, so here you can see even Bitcoin in the last year has outperformed, but Bitcoin will continue to go up if gold is anything to go by. Let's just get rid of this, and then we can see what it actually looks like. Clear. Boom. Look at that. I mean, gold's really shot up. So what does that mean in inflation? And I think that's really an attractive element for the hedge fund, right? What does the hedge index look like? That was put together by the Truflation team. You have oil in there, Bitcoin, gold, S&P 500, and silver, right? So that constitution there and the breakdown associated with that, what is that? It's sort of 20, 25, 25, 10, 20, where that's sort of the balance. And you can see what that looks like. There's a whole fact sheet here. You can read up about it, how the composition comes together, why it's in there. You can download the documentation and the methodology. But either way, and soon you'll be able to come here and trade it. But either way, here you can see it's also picking up. And this is a great alternative way to invest and hedge yourself against inflation. But yeah, 2 is the new 3 is the new 2. We've been saying that for a while. Yeah, so that's a quick download this week. What's been going on? Thank you very much, and have a great weekend. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every day the same day for me. But enjoy, and we'll see you back on Thursday. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day and a great couple of days. See you then. Bye.